All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Culture Wave Media Network. I'm going to be one of your hosts today. My name is Mark Jacobino. I'm joined by Vinny Albano.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about Invincible Episode 5. We jump back in, and we have a lot going on in this episode across multiple characters, both main characters and super side characters. We focus in on Multi-Paul and his connection to Titan and the underground crime lords. We touch on Mark and Amber needing money to get an apartment and going into a very interesting business venture with the prison system. And yeah, how did you feel about this episode kind of jumping around a lot to some more side characters than I feel like the beginning of the season had done?
Yeah, so this episode is, to be brutally honest, my least favorite out of the 5 thus far. I don't think it's a bad episode, but I don't think it's a great episode. I think overall, coming out of this, my first impression was, wow, the Amber and Mark stuff is my favorite stuff. Like, it's wholesome, it's sweet, it's just good character drama that is, it's nothing, too complicated or complex or traumatic. But, we talked about it on the previous episodes, how they're building this relationship and their chemistry is so good together. I love all the little jokes with Debbie and how Mark is trying to hide that they're sleeping together in the house, and even the stuff with Oliver is sweet, and it's just really fleshing out the behind the scenes of these superheroes before we probably are going to move on to the more traumatic stuff.
Right.
In terms of the side character stuff, I didn't really care for it. It's just like we haven't seen Titan or any of those guys in since I don't know when.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, okay. I like the world building aspect of like, okay, the how the street lords and the gang bosses are cleaning up the streets or dirtying the streets, and that aspect is kind of cool. But I mean, like I said, it was kind of like, okay, here's a bad guy to fight for the week type of deal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel we were very optimistic in the beginning of the season that we were going to kind of focus this up, keep it on the Viltrumites, Mark, and all like the major goings on in the galaxy, and stop going to this like street level thing. And yeah, when we got into this episode, I was like, okay, we're going back to the street level thing, and like you kind of alluded to, the last time we had seen Titan was 4 years ago in season 1, and at this point I completely forgot that whole interaction. Like I remember the Beast guy fighting Mark and beating him up in the tower, like I remember that, but I forget all of the politics behind it. So when we jump into this and it's like, remember this, like you don't remember this, I'm like, no, I don't. I really don't. I appreciate the character work they did with Titan and his daughter. I connected with him a bit, and he has like some good quips throughout this episode. And I was like, okay, cool, I get it. But at the same time, like you come from an episode where you have, Mark going to the future to see, what's his name?
The Immortal.
The Immortal. Yeah. That's a huge plot point. And then we go to Omni-Man and Alan, breaking out of a Viltrumite prison. It's like, these are big things. Then we jump back to this and it all feels like kind of just unnecessary. But I agree. I really like the Oliver scene where he sneaks out and you think it's retaliation for Mark saying he wants to move out. You think he's going to go on this, like, not rampage, but like run away. And he's just out with his friends. And then it's like, oh, this is nice. And then a bunch of kids show up and you're like, oh no. He's going to like punch through them like he did the two twins. And then he just pulls their pants down. And it's like, wow, okay, it was very subversive. I was like, okay, yeah, this is good. I really like this. I like the Amber and Mark stuff. I like that Amber kind of calls out the feeling that I had where it did feel really rushed between them. Not that they didn't have the established foundation, but just felt like we were running into this relationship this year. He's like, I want you, let's date. And then she's like, okay. And then they're sleeping together and then they're doing everything together. So I like that they slowed it down in this episode. But yeah, I agree. I think overall this was probably the weakest episode of the season, just because it really focused on those side characters. The episode opens with a classic brutal Invincible moment.
Yeah,
and
that was cool.
I'm glad you found it cool. I found it very uncomfortable because so Multi-Paul or multiple, like you said, was in his cell in this prison, and to break out of the cell, I was like, he could turn into a bunch of people. Can he like get like a bunch of guys to push the door open or something like that? And he gets up on the ceiling, starts multiplying. I'm like, oh no, he's not. Is he? And then he literally creates enough clones of himself to like push the door open from all the force and pressure of bodies being stuffed into a room, and all of his multiples are just getting crushed and destroyed. I'm like, this is so gross. And when Invincible can still up the bar with gross out stuff, I gotta respect it. How did you feel?
I loved it. I thought that was maybe one of the best parts of the episode. Honestly, it's a killer opening.
Literally,
it's gross, it's disgusting, and it's bloody. It's cool, and it's creative as hell. It reminds me of something adjacent on Amazon, The Boys, right?
Right.
Like that's something The Boys would do. But Invincible takes full advantage of it being animation and them just like really being able to jam packed it. I need more of that, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. Like when in season 2 with the whole Rex explode, which also something I want to talk about.
Yes.
That whole battle where it's just like super bloody versus the lizard people, and it's just it's fun. It's fun,
Where do you think they're gonna go with Kate and him? Because they've now established this backstory of they made their dad go crazy because they kept multiplying his kids, and the dad just didn't know what to do. So he's in an asylum at this point, and Paul blames him. Kate doesn't, and then we get this tease at the end of the episode where Kate sees he left one of their kind of like arts and crafts things that they used to do at her place, and now he's kind of running about, and we don't know if he's going back to the crime lords or if he's gonna kind of go on his own and try and bring Kate in to some degree. Are you excited for them to be a bigger portion of the season? I'm not particularly interested, but there's a world where they make it interesting because of the little backstory they put in. How do you feel, and maybe any theories going forward with them too?
Yeah, I literally echo your exact words. Am I interested as of now? No. I mean, like, Kate's subplot in season 2 was probably the worst subplot, with the whole immortal and what was going on there. However, like you said, there is potential. Now there's more of an emotional tie to the character that we didn't have. I honestly wish he was set up back for earlier, right? Like, why did we not know about him in season 1, right? But it's fine. I think there's potential. It's just like, where do you go with that? Like, how important could the father be, right? Unless the father, they talked about when the father left, the government came in and took them. Maybe the father was working for the government, like working for someone like Cecil, and happened to have children. We don't know how. Maybe it was experiments. Maybe he was the reason for
kind of like Adam Eve's mom, or her thing. She broke out and she found her kind of family. Yeah, that's a good point. We could jump to Rexplode Your King because you wanted to talk about it.
My goat.
Yeah, you could take it. You could take it.
Honestly, there's not. Yeah, he's just man. He's probably gonna die soon. They're really like, hey guys, look at him now. He's a good guy.
He's all reformed. He's making dinner for the shrink ray. It's nice. He's got a nice relationship brewing.
He's goofy. He's the perfect man. Honestly,
great.
Honestly, he's don't forget about him cheating on Adam Eve.
Of course, yeah. That was old Rex.
That was old Rex. See, that you're getting what I'm talking about now. I like his redemption arc. Yeah. Like I said, it feels like he's gonna die, even though we were foreshadowed in season 2 with the future variants that he's not gonna die, but we don't know.
Does Shrink Ray die? And that sets him off.
Yeah.
Because now he's connected to her a bit more, and he really hasn't had anyone, honestly, like other than Adam Eve, but at that point it was like kind of lusty. It wasn't really like love. So potentially that could be his catalyst to be someone super cool moving forward for everyone except Vinny.
Yeah, no.
He'll go down a dark path, and Vinny will be like, "No, I want the old Rex back."
No. That's not what I'm saying. I like the new Rex. Like in season 1, I did, like he was a dickhead. Like
No, I'm saying if he goes dark. Like I'm saying if Ray dies and he becomes like a shell of his former self, and then you'll be like, "No, I want the old fun Rex."
Oh.
And everyone else will be like, "No, this is great. Rex is like deep and he has all this stuff."
Hey, we'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. But yeah, no, I mean, like I'm enjoying his arc. I think I just like how it feels slice of lifey, but not in like at least for me, it doesn't feel like too sappy. Right? It feels like I like seeing these superheroes just be normal people, and he's having this redemption. He's funny, and he used to be a dickhead. He's not a dickhead anymore. Amen
to that. Yes, he's become much more tolerable. No, I actually like him. One other thing, like big thing I wanted to talk about this episode, and I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk online about the animation quality of Invincible throughout all the seasons, and I feel like I've been seeing it a lot more recently. And this episode, for me, the fight between the dragon and a couple of these scenes, I felt underwhelmed with the action, especially compared to previous seasons. The animation, at least, of the action. It just didn't feel as punchy as previous seasons. I feel like they were very... the way they cut the scenes was very kind of like, I don't want to call them lazy, but like they did keyframes that were much simpler to draw instead of, the big bombastic action. I know they put this season out very quick after season 2. How are you feeling about the animation quality?
Yeah, I did notice that in this episode too. And I noticed something very specific, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's the overall quality is it's not intolerable. But I do agree. They're cutting a lot of corners, and I'm curious if they were given enough time, if they were given enough money. Hopefully, I can only hope that the season ends with a big finale, and they were just pivoting their time and money towards whatever's to come. Yeah. That's my hope. But as of the time we're recording this, that's not guaranteed, and we don't know. So I can only base it off of what we've seen here. And yeah, it is underwhelming. I will say, the one thing I wanted to point out was in this episode specifically, I actually really liked character expression. Character expression was done, and there's a con to this too, though, is that there was a lot of moments where the character expression was really like exaggerated, comic booky, kind of mirroring more of Ryan Oatley's, the artist to the comic book, his art style, which he has a beautiful art style, and his art style is super exaggerated. Yeah. And it reminded me more of that. I don't know, just characters, bigger mouths and bigger eyes at times. However, that also brings me to the con, is that although I liked that, it was like you could very easily see that the art style was not consistent in a way.
Yeah,
or maybe not the art style would not be the right vernacular to use, but just the art, the characters overall weren't consistent. I noticed it with Mark from cut to cut.
Yes,
you're right. His facial structure was changing. Yes. And at moments I'm like, oh, this is cool. This looks good, but then you cut and then it's Mark, but it looks a little different, and it's not bad, but like that difference almost throws you off. Yes. And then by the time you get adjusted to that, it cuts again, and all of a sudden it's not consistent again. So it just like it's like I think there was a couple times where it happened with Adam Eve as well, where the facial drawing just seemed a bit off. And there's been a couple times this season, at least, I don't know if you noticed this, but there's been a couple times where they've reused face models on random characters. Like Debbie, there was at one point, I think it was early in the season when he was fighting the big monster in the training grounds, and then the two parents were watching. And one of them was just Debbie's facial model, just darker. It was just like an Indian woman, but it was Debbie's face. And I was like, oh, we're reusing face models of main characters? Come on now.
And I feel like it's happened a couple times, and I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but it's just a little concerning. Maybe they're like holding the budget for those last couple episodes because they know it's going to be super huge. But for me, it's just like you want animation to get better as the seasons go on. You know, like the first season of a show in animation's like very, you know, basic, you know, just getting a feel for the art style and everything. And then you want it to get better over time. And I feel like Invincible, that's like the biggest gripe you could have with the show, is that it's just kind of been stagnant. And, you know, even watching like clips from season 1, like season 1 clips sometimes go harder than some of the current animation. Like they really went all out. So I hope the animators are getting paid fair wages. I hope they're not getting worked into the ground to get out more seasons. But the animation quality is definitely something I noticed for this episode, at least with like a big dragon battle. Speaking of that big dragon battle, another character dies and then is brought back to life at the end of the episode. That puts our count at like 30 in the entire show. The dragon guy's alive again.
And not even that, his big assistant guy.
Yeah, right.
He got dropped from the sky, and then he comes out just with an arm in the sling. You just got dropped from like the stratosphere.
Yeah,
and you just a broken arm,
just a scratch,
just a broken arm. It's that honestly, that post credit scene, I don't want to say ruined the episode for me, but you know, the episode left off on a good point where I was like, oh, I was happy, and then. Oh, well, gotta wait for that post-credit scene. And then that post-credit scene was like, oh. It felt like we just did our review on Captain America.
Yes.
And Marvel has had a really bad track of, you know, the Marvel post-credit scene. It's the thing everyone waits for. And recently, all the movies they've been putting out, the post-credit scenes have been terrible. Like, especially Captain America's one. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's just like, that's what it felt like. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I was happy 2 seconds ago. It's like you have this side character who I don't really care about. He's just monster of the week. You could have killed him off, or you could have just left him ambiguous if he went into a jail cell or whatever. But then they make it like this big point. Oh, he's back. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then also his henchman, his goon, right?
Yeah.
This guy, you could have just. He was a nobody. We've never seen him before. You could have just killed him off and then had someone else revive him. And the reason why that annoys me more than the dragon guy coming back is because the teleporter man, right? The teleporter criminal who sent him in the stratosphere.
Yep.
Him doing that, we see him. That's a brutal murder. Even if it was a nobody henchman, you should have brutalized him, set up that guy, set up Titan as like, okay, we sympathize for Titan, but the people he's got on his side are, whoa, they're killers. But in the end, it's just like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we have the character coming back to life, and then for me, it just makes me like upset because that means we're gonna get more of these side stories. We're gonna get more of these underground like crime lord stories that don't really elevate like the main story. Yes, Mark gets involved here, but he gets just beat up like Mark does. He doesn't really beat the dragon. And it's just gonna come back. And for me, I don't know. I haven't read the graphic novel. I don't know what the overarching like story and the conclusion of it is. I don't know if they're being like maybe too faithful to it, to they're like, we gotta, adapt all the arcs in it, when in reality they probably could be cutting back. I don't know how much these contribute, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but there's a part of me that feels like they might be over adapting the source material to a point where in a TV format it doesn't work as much, because in a graphic novel format you could just keep going. You could be like, all right, I don't really care about this, I'm just going to read through quickly. But in TV, you got to sit there, you got to listen, you got to watch. It's just a completely different medium.
Yeah, and you got to wait, and week by week are going by, and it feels like we're forgetting subplot. It's like, what was the whole Rudy Monster Girl subplot? That has only really been mentioned or alluded to once thus far. We're 5 episodes in. It was a huge subplot in season 2. So what's going on with that? Are we going to return to that? You know, we only have 3 episodes left. Are we going to return to the Storm post-credit scene setup? You know, like I do like sometimes when superheroes are just being superheroes, but you know, like I said, even with the slice of life stuff with Rex, but I do agree of like we're juggling a lot, and we should focus it a little bit more.
Agreed. Yeah. I think that pretty much covers most of the episode. Do you have anything else, or?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to comment that I didn't get to comment on before is Titan.
Okay. Yeah.
The one thing I do like about his character, they've characterized him, they've gave him a sympathetic reason why we care, and he's charismatic. He's a very charismatic character, and he is. They should bring him back in a way of like, if Mark wants to assemble. I know there's been allusions to making a team of his own. Titan should be on there. You know, I think what this episode, to the benefit of this episode, is that it gives us another character in the playground to pick from.
Yeah.
And not have it just be like a blank slate of a character, someone who we could throw into a battle and then there's some stakes there,
right?
Because we know, like, oh, now he has a daughter at home. Da 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 da.
Yeah, that's a good point, because he says he wants to leave the game. He tells Machine Head by the end, he's like, I'm out. I just want my city and stay away from my family. Of course, we have no idea if the crime lords will adhere to that. Maybe that's when he comes to Mark again. And he's like, hey, they're coming after me and my daughter. Like, you want to save them? Like, this time I'm not asking you to break a assassin out of prison. I'm just asking you to help me protect the city and my family. And maybe, there is a path for him to join whatever team Mark assembles to a degree, which would be cool. Any like predictions, or like, what do you want to see next week? Do you want to finally jump into Angstrom? Do you think we go back to Omni-Man and Alan? Where are you thinking for next week?
That's tough, honestly. We're at a point where I think the Omni-Man stuff, you know, that was answered last. Obviously, I want to see more of that. But realistically, are we going to see a lot of it next episode? Probably not.
Yeah.
I think they're waiting for the later, maybe the last episode.
Yeah.
I don't know, honestly. I have no.
The show jumps around so much; it's really hard to predict where they go the week to week. So I mean, that's all we got. If you're good, then we'll sign off here. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like and a comment. How are you guys enjoying this season? Do you like these side quest type episodes? Do you want them to focus up like us? And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Please follow us on all our social media. That'll be down below me and in the description. If you want to check out more of our content, we're covering anything big in TV. We're covering Severance. We're covering what else are you covering? We just covered Captain America. You were covering the Spider-Man animated show. We're doing solo leveling. We're hopefully doing a recording for Flow, the animated movie. I'm really excited about that. If you're interested in anything, we're probably talking about it on here. So that's all for this episode. I've been Mark Jacobino.
I've been Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you on the next one.
This is The Culture.